Thank you very much, Baroness Faulkner. I'm the Liberal Democrats Women and Equality spokesperson, and earlier this year we completely reframed our policy before the judgment on LGBTQ rights. And I find myself confused now by the interim guidance. I find a lot of my constituents, party members, acquaintances who have read the guidance in full coming to me confused in the way that my colleague has just explained about what exactly it means for them. So what I wonder is, how does this interim update comply with the requirement of Goodwin versus the UK in 2002 that trans people should not be left in gender limbo? Because it seems to so many of us that what the interim judgment says is, well, you can't be one thing and you can't be another.
So, first of all, I'm slightly confused by what you mean by an interim judgment. The judgment of the Supreme Court was a final judgment. It was a judgment on...
I meant your interim guidance. I beg your pardon.
So that's not an interim guidance either. We've published 11 pieces of guidance in the last year, and this is not guidance. When we publish guidance, we call it guidance, and we make the distinction between whether it is non-statutory or statutory. Statutory means, of course, that the courts will take and tribunals will take that into account. Non-statutory will mean it doesn't.
I think my point, sorry if I could interrupt, Baroness Faulkner, my point is that the interim guidance doesn't guide. It lacks clarity. It leaves people in complete limbo, not knowing what the Act means for them, and is causing a great deal of anxiety. So how do you think that we can progress until we have addressed that and we have removed the anxiety and created some clarity? Does that bring us back to Parliament and perhaps new legislation?
Okay, so if I wonder whether it might be helpful for me to give you a timeline of where we are on these matters, because that in itself may reduce anxiety. So we're halfway through our consultation on the Code of Practice. We expect it to conclude on 30th June, and we expect to take the best part of a month to continue to consult and not continue to consult, to continue to review the consultation responses and to produce what we think is the final version of the law as we understand it for the purposes of this Code of Practice. We then hand it to government. That'll be just around your summer recess. We hand it to government, and it then becomes the property of government, of the Minister for Women and Equalities, Bridget Phillipson, MP. And it is really for the government. This is why, in one of the reasons we published the interim update, it was due to the high demand, incidentally, most of all, I would say, from Scotland, noting that you're a Scottish member. The Scottish relevant parliamentary committees wrote to us the day after the Supreme Court judgment, seeking our advice. And I had a meeting yesterday. I was delighted to meet Scottish ministers yesterday, several of them, on some of these vexed issues as well. And we had a very good dialogue in terms of clarifying. Government, the UK government, Welsh government, Jane Hutt, MP, Assembly member in the Minister in Wales, ministers in Scotland, parliamentary select committees. We received a letter from this select committee. We received a letter from our other oversight committee, the Joint Committee for Human Rights. We had to strike a balance between accuracy, which is profoundly important to us to deal with the anxiety point that you discussed. We had to strike a balance between accuracy and clarity on the one hand, and speed, because we recognized more than anyone else that certain groups may feel particularly anxious about the meaning of these things because they're not always straightforward, particularly the practical examples that we've been discussing here today. So we decided that we would, for our part, hand it to government as soon as we conceivably could. What happens to it after July, when we give our final version to government, is for government. But we expect government to have laid it in Parliament and for it to have succeeded its parliamentary stages by the autumn. And so much as I would love to say that there will be clarity from tomorrow morning, I can't say that. What I can say is that our code of practice actually, by giving practical examples and seeking questions, it's in a text which seeks answers, narrative answers to questions, will itself provide some clarity.
Thank you for that. I was aware of the timeline, but thank you for clarifying it. But it still doesn't answer the basic, if you like, question that you asked yourself. You said it was a balance between the accuracy and clarity and time. Given some of the questions you've been asked already about clarity and the follow-ups about clarity, do you think you have actually achieved that you have succeeded in balancing clarity with speed, or perhaps the clarity and the accuracy and the anxiety as a result was sacrificed for speed, and perhaps you should have taken a little longer?
We are taking till the end of July, and the judgment was handed down in April. By our calculations, we think it may be 7 or 8 months before it becomes statutory. But let me come to the heart of what I think you're getting at, which is that there is anxiety because people don't know where we're going to land, what our landing point will be at the end. And I would say we don't know our landing point either, because a consultation, if it's got to be meaningful, has to be open to the views and the responses that you get. And we will only come to a definitive landing point after we have seen those responses, spoken to those stakeholders, heard from them about their concerns. And then we will come to a landing point of where we think the law rightfully, in practical terms, takes us.
Thank you very much, Christine. Rebecca.
Thank you very much. Firstly, can I say